first piece is that the qualitative data support the quantitative data from the NCIA survey, which indicated that there was a gap in student experience that seemed to be predicated on pieces of a student's identity. So students who are not white were reporting different experiences than students who are white. Students who are members of the LGBTQIA+ community were reporting different experiences from students who are not. And there was also some variance between girls and boys, so along gender identity lines. The second piece that I found is that there's an empathy and perspective taking gap that exists both amongst students and amongst adults, and I would also say between students and adults. There were a lot of conversations that I had where either folks were not moving themselves outside of their own perspective, or were people who were able to do that, were able to pinpoint a very particular catalyst in their lives that made it possible for them to do perspective taking and have broader empathy. The third finding is that school culture to students really feels like it champions a very narrow path to success. And this ultimately breeds an unhealthy conformity. Not all conformity is always bad. Sometimes we want to, and there are ideals we want to try and instill in everybody and move to conform towards. But what I really heard was a lot of anxiety around conformity and siphoning off of one's own identity in order to conform to what felt like a very narrow standard. And this comes up both socially and in the academic environment. The fourth piece is that adults are not seen by students as a safe space. There are exceptions. There are some students who said, yeah, I know I can go to this particular person and like they're pretty cool. But on the whole, students were not reporting that they felt like there was an adult person on campus that they could go to and vent, let down their guard, share something that had happened to them, seek help from. And as a result, students are internalizing their pain and trauma, and in many cases minimizing it, which could have some harmful long-term effects for them. Students also, actually both students and adults talked about this, a sense of performative activism and reactive responses in the school, but also in the town and the culture at large, which outweighed authentic growth opportunities or proactive measures, proactive care. There was a sense that there was a lot of good intentions. There's well-intentioned paternalism and sort of a feeling of charity that a lot of people, especially in the broader Cohasset community, espoused. But this was being used in a lot of ways to maintain historical power imbalances. There was a one-way street to building belonging rather than an actual sort of open road to building belonging. This came through a lot in conversation with students, that they felt very reduced. The discourse around other humans is reductive. So there's a denial in some spaces of the intersectionality of both identity and of need. So that students might have multiple component parts to themselves and adults as well. And also then this sort of ignores the natural progression of adolescent development. And this last piece was really about students talking about their peers. And I'll go into more depth on this in a little bit, but really a sense that you kind of get locked into a label and a friend group. And for the bulk of students who've been in Cohasset their whole lives, that happens early in elementary school, and it doesn't really change. And so there's not room for the natural human growth that they're going through in childhood and adolescence. A big piece, the culture of the town reinforces the culture of the school. So it makes it hard for potential change makers to enact change because the social pressures that are existing in the environment of the school are mirroring the social pressures that exist in the town itself. And this came through in conversations with students, conversations with parents, conversations with teachers. Everybody talked about this, that there was this sense of like, there's something sticky and hard about the culture in our town. really hungry for authentic human connection with teachers and with each other. They're looking for support. They're looking to know their teachers as humans. They're looking to be known as humans. They're looking to be vulnerable, even though they're not really sure they know how to do that, or that there are spaces for them to do that. They're really craving deep human connection, and want to make an effort to have it. And then the last piece is, overwhelmingly, I heard, again, from all constituencies I talked to, that there's faith in all of your intentions and ability. There's faith in the current leadership to make the experience of school better. And I know that over the past several years, or even kind of 5 or 7 years, there's been a lot of shift and change in your district, and a lot of upheaval. And I think this really speaks to how people have faith, they trust in you all. So even though there are all of these things, and some of the testimony that I'm going to share today might sound really hard to hear and think about and internalize, the underlying piece is sort of these points 9 and 10. Students are really looking to connect, and at the end of the day, the community has faith in our ability to do that. Any questions or